Welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. Happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What a historic 24 hours for our community, our city, and our country. Thank you.
Jim, you left your butter up here on the podium. Good afternoon. Thank you, President Carlo, and all of the members of the Downtown Rotary for suffering me to be here this afternoon to talk about Juneteenth. Estrus, would you throw me that napkin, please? Thank you.
That was Carlo, that wasn't.
Interesting that I'm wearing the same outfit that I was wearing in Rachel's headshot. Photo credit to Rachel DeLera for that headshot. It is with a great deal of joy that I wish you all a happy Juneteenth. For today is the first federal Juneteenth holiday. Now, before Jim Austin got to his commercial, he stepped all over my charge for the day, which was to tell you a little bit about the history of Juneteenth. But let me go back. When the founding fathers of this country sat down and penned the sacred documents that established these United States of America. When they wrote these words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." A lot of people in this room were left out of that statement. That statement did not include people of color. Neither did it include women. What they should have written was that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all white property-owning men are equal. Nevertheless, the words that they wrote gave this country something towards which to strive. And ever since that time in 1776, when those words were written, America has been striving to get it right. America has been striving to create that more perfect union. To be sure, we have made a lot of progress as a nation toward the achievement of that goal. The goal being to see each other as equals and to create a more perfect union. When General Gordon Granger arrived on the shores of Galveston Island on June the 19th, 1865, it was one more milestone in America's attempt to get it right. From that day, 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, from that day, June the 19th, 1865, freedom happened for Black people in Texas. Now, to be historically correct, it took another 6 months until December of 1865 for freedom to become the law of the land in America with the ratification of the 13th Amendment. And with freedom for slaves in the last state to free their slaves, the state of Delaware. Interesting that President Biden would be the one to sign the law creating Juneteenth as a national holiday, being that Delaware is his home. Now we find ourselves 156 years after General Granger brought the Emancipation Proclamation to the shores of Texas. 156 years later, we're still trying to convince people that we're all brothers and sisters in this nation, and that none of us is free until all of us are free. That's what Juneteenth is about, really. It's about that realization that we've got work to do to achieve freedom for all of us. I was never so proud in my life as I was yesterday when I viewed on CNN the bill signing for the Juneteenth holiday. And I listened to my president say kind and embracing and encouraging words about a woman I've known my entire life, Ms. Opal Lee. I call her the grandmother of Juneteenth. But I had to kind of feel for President Biden there at the end, because Opal got in his ear. Now, I don't know what she said to the president, but it took her a while to say it. She took advantage. There is Miss Opal right there. Y'all give it up for Opal Lee. Opal, you may not be able to tell, but this entire room is standing and applauding for you. I just got through talking about you at the White House yesterday, and how at the end of the bill signing ceremony, during which you were all hugged up with Vice President Harris. But at the end of that ceremony, you got in the president's ear. I don't know what you said to him, but it took you a while to say it. And he got an earful from Opal Lee. I want you to know that we are all so very proud to salute you on this day, the day of the first federal holiday for Juneteenth. That is today. Y'all can sit down. I applaud Ms. Opal for her decades of work to bring this holiday into fruition. I applaud her for decades of activism in achieving this recognition for Black Americans and especially for Black Texans. But I want to be clear. The declaration of a federal Juneteenth holiday does not mark the end of the fight on behalf of our community. For the vestiges of slavery and of Jim Crow still leave us with work to do to create that more perfect union about which I spoke. A Juneteenth holiday does not result in better schools. It does not result in safer neighborhoods or better paying jobs or stronger voting rights or an end to health and wealth disparities. But a Juneteenth holiday can be the catalyst by which we all join together as Americans who are equally yoked in this fight for a more perfect union. As Ms. Opal would say, let Juneteenth be the bridge that leads us to a place of love and peace and harmony and equity in these United States of America. Let us use this holiday to elevate existing challenges and galvanize ourselves for the fight ahead. If we don't do that, we're missing an opportunity. Because for us, Juneteenth was never just a celebration. It was a time to pass on to future generations the stories about how we got over as a people. Y'all know the Juneteenth story. It commemorates the date when enslaved people in Texas received word of their freedom, a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. During that 2.5 years, there was no freedom for those slaves, even though they had technically been freed. They still suffered under the lash. They still worked for free. They still could not own their families. They still could not be a part of the country that they helped build. So what do we take away from a story like that? What we take away is an appreciation for the resilience of our community, for sure. We also take away a perspective on how far we've come and how far we have to go. We also learn that none of us is free until all of us is free. But to me, that's always been the meaning of Juneteenth. No matter what the Emancipation Proclamation said, slavery was not ended until those slaves in Texas were finally free. And in today's fight, it doesn't matter how much you or I take for ourselves. Until our entire community is healthy, until our entire community has educational opportunity, until our entire community is empowered to lift each and every one to full participation in the American dream, then we are not free. So let us use this Juneteenth holiday to press forward toward the mark of the higher calling, which is freedom, love, and a more perfect union. Happy Juneteenth, y'all. Ms. Opal.
Yes.
What you got to say to these people?
I got a lot to say, but you've said it all.
Just doing what you taught me, Miss Opal.
I'm glad you're following. I'm glad you're following. I really am.
Well, we are so very proud of you, and we want you to get a little rest because it's still a long weekend coming up for you.
I wish all of those young people who are there, and you know that if you're not 94, you're young people. I wish they would come Saturday to the Evans Avenue Plaza next to Chamblee Library and walk with me that 2.5 miles to the county courthouse to symbolize that we in Texas didn't know we were free for 2.5 years. I wish they'd all come and walk with me. But if they can't walk, get in their cars. We'll caravan. We did last year from the convention center to Will Rogers Complex, and there were 300 cars, 300 families, 300 folk who learned something about Juneteenth. So I got a point or two that I want to straighten out. I want to tell you what I said to the president. I said, I want one of those pens because when I get a first-class museum in Fort Worth, and we do plan to have one, this pen's gonna be on display. And so I don't want everybody to get pens and I don't take one back to Texas. I'm so glad all of you are there and that you are celebrating Juneteenth. And I tell you, I have said repeatedly, when Juneteenth became a federal holiday, I was going to do a holy dance. And I tell you, I've done it. You didn't see it, but I've done it. I want you to know that I wrote a book called Juneteenth for Children because we must start early teaching our children our history. Because I firmly believe if people have been taught to hate, they can be taught to love.
Yes.
And I feel it is each of our responsibility to teach one. Each one teach one. Now, you know people who aren't on the same page you are on. So teach him how to love. Teach him the things that will make him understand how we can work together to dispel the disparities in our land. Each person, don't depend on Commissioner Brooks. Don't depend on Jim Austin. Don't depend on Gwen Morrison. Each one of us teach one of us. It's our duty. It's a legacy we must leave to our children. We don't have guns, but we've got a mind. And the technology that's before us can be used to make us first-class citizens, which we're not at this point. I'm in New York and I'm headed home and I'll be there. I tell you, I'm on my way. You need to know we're gonna have a festival at Panther Island after I get through at the county courthouse at 3 o'clock, and we're gonna have fireworks. It'll be the second time we've had fireworks. The first time we had it from You could see them from Evans Avenue in Rosedale. I'm still paying for them fireworks. But come to Panther Island and let's rejoice. Let people know how grateful we are that we've got our own federal Juneteenth holiday. I want you to know that working together, we can make this the best land in the world. Oh, I'm mourning. Okay, they're gonna have breakfast at 8. We're gonna step off at 10. And oh, come on and join us. I'm looking forward to you. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Opal. So tell me, Carlo, how do you want to proceed? It is hard to top that. All right, why don't we bring up our panel very briefly. Dr. John Lawrence Barnett, Ms. Maddie Peterson Compton, and Mr. Estrus Tucker. Y'all all know each one of them. Tom, can you put up slide number 26? Oh, you got that, Carlo, okay. While they're doing that, y'all say something, each one of you say something about what Juneteenth means to you. Why don't we start with Maddie?
Thank you. I guess the main thing that Juneteenth has meant to me and is demonstrated by Ms. Lee is that you can accomplish almost anything and you can demonstrate your capacity just by being persistent. She has been just persistent about this. She never gave up. She never lost hope. And there have been plenty of things that have occurred that could have made her lose hope. But that's really the symbol of Juneteenth to me, is that it was an opportunity finally for the world to see who we are and what we have to give. And so I admire her so much because she has persevered. And I think this is the occasion on which we certainly, now that we have a holiday, a federal holiday, we certainly finally have the momentum, I hope, the momentum to move to all of those things that you've said, Roy, and the things that she has said, that we are not there yet. We're certainly down the road, but there's a lot of road ahead of us. And she also has demonstrated something that I think is important for everyone to know, is that anybody can lead. You don't have to have a string of letters after your name. All you need to have is the will to go forward and to work passionately for that thing that is important. And Juneteenth isn't just about us. And it's even not just about, and I mean us people of color, Juneteenth is a holiday that all the children of whatever color they are, it's a day that all of them need to know about. This is an opportunity to educate the adults, to educate children, because we all will get to that more perfect union when everyone has embraced the understanding of the value of each human being.
Thank you, Maddie. Dr. Barnett, go for it.
Hello.
He's got his own self's mic.
First, I'd like to commend Opal Lee on being the torchbearer for this worthy cause. I'm of the opinion, and the longer that I live, I realize that, one, you can't make a U-turn with a cruise ship, that you have to start turning, and it takes a while for it to right its direction. My favorite quote is one that Martin Luther King made famous, in that it said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." I think sometimes as humans, we feel that we can correct things overnight, but it takes a process, and we have to trust the process. And so I think everything that's happening is not a result of our ethnicity. Sometimes there are segments of the community who think that if they were in the majority, that it would be different, and it would not. We don't fight each other, we fight our common union and bond, which is our humanity. And our humanity makes us tribal, makes us want to preserve our privilege, makes us not want to give up the things that have distinguished us. But I would dare say to you that any other ethnicity in the majority would have the same reaction. And so we can't judge, and we can't be afraid of being judged. We have to trust the process. Growing up in Fort Worth, I have seen change. Has it been at the pace that I would have desired? No, not at all. But from the time that I grew up on the north side, 2 blocks from what's now Billy Bob's, and the reopening of the ISIS Theater, which as a boy was our only theater, and we had to go in a side door to go up to the top balcony where we were allowed to view the movie. But we made it miserable for those of you who could sit on the floor, because we threw all of our trash down on your head. And oftentimes they would come up to the balcony and clear the balcony, but we had so much pleasure in being cleared because we know you were getting debris out of your hair. And so now to be able to walk into the ISIS Theater and go through the front door, I can definitely attest to the fact that change has come. It's not in our expectations. If you look at the decision of the Supreme Court in our healthcare, who would have ever believed with the persuasion of the Supreme Court that that could have happened? We worry about things that oftentimes never happen, but God is in control. And this is a process, and those of us who are fighting to gain equity need to keep fighting. Those of you who are resisting change need to keep resisting, because the moral universe bends towards justice. And there will be a point where you'll be convinced in your hearts that giving and making subservient your desires to win, you'll realize that this grand experiment we call American democracy is so delicate in its structure that our forefathers wrote those things that said there's hope, that we know we're asking you to do a crazy thing, but it's possible. And in my lifetime, I have seen the change. I have embraced the change. And as I look and hug my grandchildren, I know that they won't know what I knew. That your grandchildren and my grandchildren will know a different world where the structure is not so rigid, where the history is not so condemning to those who've had privilege. But you have to know that we're all alike, that I want for my children what you want for yours. And that if I was in the majority, I'd be doing the same thing to you that you're doing to me. But it's just who we are as humans. And it is the luck of the draw that has made one ethnicity more predominant than the other. And so I embrace all in your weaknesses. Don't be bad if we tell the history and it makes you feel bad. It's not you, but it's surely truth. Let us get out of this post-truth era where it's not a matter of who what the truth is, but what we want to believe that preserves our position. How do you talk when everything is relative? So let me conclude, because I could go on, but I want to thank Ms. Opal Lee. I heard a bell ring, or maybe it was my wife. She tends to give me that look or does something to say, all right, I hear you. So please hear me today, and I thank you for listening. I thank you for this opportunity. May God bless and keep us all as we strive to have equity against what is our preference.
Thank you, John Long. Mr. Estrus Tucker, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought, brother, is I wanted to change the question.
Go for
After
it.
following Roy and Opal and now Maddie and John, you know, I really would like to change the question, but I won't. I'll stick with your question.
Speak to whatever is on your heart.
Yeah, but time is limited. So what Juneteenth means to me. So the first word that comes to mind, and you'll expect it, is freedom, but it's freedom in all of its fullness. It's freedom of movement. It's freedom that implies access. It's freedom that says liberty. And it's a deep freedom that goes beyond Black people. Because slavery didn't just bind Black people. Slavery binded our country. Every race, every ethnicity, every gender bear the marks of slavery, even today. So a fullness of freedom means that we create an environment of equity and honor and dignity, that all of us are liberated. And you said it so eloquently, the quote, none of us are free until all of us are free. And it doesn't matter about our age, because the remnants of slavery is still here. Names change. So freedom, second, freedom requires a cultural literacy. Freedom has language to help us understand what freedom feels like, even if you can't speak. Helps you understand the sound of freedom, even if you're deaf. Freedom has a way of interacting with our souls. And so the language that we utter is less important than our awareness. And that delay, that 2.5-year delay, has implications even today, because even with some of our finest educational institutions, and so many with so many wondrous degrees, and yet there's a lack of awareness as to what freedom really is about, and who is free, and what are the implications of a society where equity is still shadowed based upon race and gender. So Juneteenth is about the fullness of freedom. And then on an even more personal level, Juneteenth is so much about Opal Lee, who I've known for a very, very long time and love deeply, and see her as very much as a grandmother. And so the Juneteenth personalizes freedom to where we see brothers and sisters who look different from us, who speak a different language, who live on a different side of town. If Juneteenth means anything, it has to be able to elevate our eyes beyond me and my folk, people who look like me, and recognize our neighbors beyond the colors of our skin. That's a little bit.
I want to thank each one of our panelists for their wisdom today. Each one has so much to say that you need another program like this so we can get it all out. So much of what was said by each one of you will preach all by itself. That's a Black thing, y'all. But thank you. Thank you for your participation in this program. Thank you to the Rotary for having us on this great occasion to talk about Juneteenth. And may God bless and keep each and every one of you. Come on, Carlos.
I'll close and Tuesday I'll close. Commissioner, thank you, and our panelists. You know, we talk about a more perfect union, and I can't imagine a more perfect moment than yesterday at the White House. I can't imagine a more perfect program than today, and I can't imagine a more perfect hero than Opal. It is the tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth to donate a book to the Fort Worth Public Library in honor of Commissioner, our panelists, and Opal. And there we will have a copy of the book plate to remember today. Thank you all for being here. Such a meaningful, historic program that we should all be proud of. Tom, let's put the announcements up on the screen, and I thank you all for being here. This has been the Rotary Club of Fort Worth.